All right, welcome. So now that the NFL's week is over, let's go ahead and look at the week that was. New Orleans beating Atlanta 21-16. Cleveland held on against Tennessee 41-35. And of course, last night's result, Baltimore ran over the Dallas Cowboys. So that's just a brief look. We're going to get into this. Number 32, I can't do it. So the Jets ran the worst play to end a game ever, and then just to prove that they weren't trying to rig it so that they would lose, they fired their defensive coordinator. Yep, and I agree with that move. But why is the coach still employed? So for 30-second, I put the Lakers because sure, defending NBA champions, probably better at football than the Jets at this stage. And definitely their coaches would know not to run a blitz. I can understand why people on Twitter were saying so that was on purpose. They were trying to lose on purpose, right? Like it looked on purpose. And at that point, the Jets come out the next day and go, look, we don't do anything on purpose. So we're going to fire the defensive coordinator. Yeah. Number 31, they're now 1-11. They lost against Minnesota 27-24. It was close, but Jacksonville proved they wanted it less. So they're 1-11, and they're the one team that might ruin the Jets' day if the Jets do actually win a game. Jacksonville's the one team that could really ruin their season if they don't end up getting the number one draft pick. But it's pretty clear that the Jets are steamrolling their way to that number one pick, and Jacksonville. The play calling they had going on too, it was very entertaining. So these two teams, the Jets, and I'm just going to take that off of there. The Jets and the Jags they both start with J and they're both pretty bad. Number 30 is the LA Chargers coming off the 45-0 loss against New England. Yeah. So for the Chargers, they are now 3-9. This upcoming week, the Chargers, they are. I know they're on here. They're at home against Atlanta, so they're going to lose that. For Jacksonville, they're home against Tennessee. They're going to lose that. The Jets, they're going to Seattle. They're going to lose that. This is probably your bottom three next week too. And Herbert, this is your team. Number 29, coming off that 34-17 loss last night against Baltimore, is Dallas. So for Dallas, they're now 3-9. They may very well be falling out of contention in that division, but at 3-9, they're still on the fence, right? And for Dallas this coming week, they are headed to Cincinnati. They're going to play against the Bengals. That's right, the Bengals, who are now 2-9-1. Coming off of their 19-7 loss against Miami, I should say, not Minnesota. They didn't play two games, but Miami beat them 19-7, and Cincinnati looked pretty bad. So that's the battle for 28th, boys and girls. Can't wait. It'd be great if the Bengals and the Chargers. Remember, I cheer for the Bengals and the Chargers, 28-30. Yeah, this is a rough time to start up a football power rankings every week, isn't it? Because, yeah. Number 27, the Eagles. Just plummeting. The Eagles are just plummeting. So the Eagles this week, Philadelphia, were against Green Bay, lost 30-16. Philadelphia this coming week, they're at home against New Orleans. They're going to lose that. So the only winning team in these bottom six should be probably, I'll say Dallas beats Cincinnati because Cincinnati. But for the Eagles, they're 3-8-1, and their one tie came against the Bengals. Remember early on in these power rankings, I said, well, if Philadelphia can't beat the Bengals, and now here we are, that they're both in the bottom row. So it all checks out. And Carson Wentz, the whole quarterback thing isn't great for him right now, is it? Number 26, these guys actually. This week they lost 26-20 against Indianapolis. For Houston, they're now 4-8. So I'll just throw Houston on the board here. They're now 4-8. Houston this week, they're in Chicago against the dropping quickly Chicago Bears. So for Houston, their chances are basically done. They're third in their division. They're going to finish ahead of Jacksonville, so kudos there. But they're not in any kind of contention for anything right now. It's just not going to happen. Number 25, Detroit. The Detroit Lions are currently at 5-7. They're tied with Chicago now. So for Detroit, they go in and they beat Chicago 34-30, showing that Chicago is just in real trouble. Now they're home against Green Bay. So while the season is, for all intents and purposes, basically done for Detroit, if they could beat Green Bay this week, 6-7 doesn't look so bad, comparatively speaking, with how things have looked at certain points this year. So yeah, that rounds out the bottom row. Number 24, Denver. The Broncos this week, they went in and lost against Kansas City 22-16, which was not a game that flattered Kansas City a whole lot. But Kansas City won it, so right. So for Denver, they're now 4-8. They're playing out the string, and they're going into Carolina next week. So for them, if they can beat Carolina, they'll move up a bit next week. But at 4-8, they're down there. At number 23, the 5-7 Chicago Bears. I remember it was, 6 weeks ago, I think I had the Bears down around 14th, 15th, somewhere in there, and I saw Bears fans saying, hey, you have us a little bit low. No. For the Bears, this season's, it's not going great, and now they're at home against Houston. They should win that game, but there's been some games they should win that they haven't. So they've got to turn this around. The losing is getting really ugly, and this season's fallen off the rails badly for Chicago, who, like a month ago, we're talking about, well, if they can turn this around a little bit, they've still got a chance. Not so much anymore. Number 22, there's Kevin Malone. So if you're going, has he forgotten about Washington? No, not really. So for Washington, they beat Pittsburgh this week. They go to 5-7. They're tied for the lead in the NFC East. Washington, to me, jumps up. They can't be in the bottom row. And even though they don't have a logo that's not just the W, which is boring, the Kevin Malone face kind of works here. It kind of sort of works. So for anybody who can't really see it, I'll bring it forward for you so you can see that very, very, I did this, we're pretty good. It works. It works. And any time that I post about Washington on Twitter, that there will always be a Kevin GIF attached to it, because that was my goal. And they beat Pittsburgh. They did it. They beat the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. And no, the Steelers can't be first after they've lost to Washington. Number 21, they had a week off this week. The byes are all done now. So for Carolina, this week they're at home against Denver. Carolina is currently 4-8. They are at the bottom of the NFC South. They're not making the playoffs, but are they better than the record? Well, we'll see what they do this week. Which means that at 20, we now have an NFC leading team in the New York Giants. And the Giants, coming out of that win in Seattle 17-12, now this week they're at home against Arizona. That suddenly looks like a winnable game. The Giants, they're leading their division. Was their defense that good, or was Seattle that bad? I think this week will tell us a little bit about that. But for Giants fans, you have to feel pretty confident now. Beating Seattle is a big one. And so if the Giants can get to 8-8, I'm looking for 8-8. If they can win 3 of their last 4, get to 8-8, at least something. I'd rather not see a below 500 team in the playoffs. That at least would be something that you could look at and go, okay, well, at least they finished at 500. Something along those lines. And again, beating Seattle, kind of a big moment if you're a Giants fan, right? Number 19, Atlanta. So for Atlanta, this week they lost 21-16 against New Orleans. It's close. They are 4-8 as well. For Atlanta, this coming week, they are in LA against the Chargers. So they should improve on their record this week. They should be 5-8 after this week. They shouldn't lose to the Chargers. Nobody should lose to the Chargers. Maybe the Jets, but nobody else should lose to the Chargers. And the Jets did lose to the Chargers, but it was close. So Atlanta should get the win this week, and I could have swapped the two, but I kept them as they are, because why not? Because sure. Because the Atlanta logo forms an F, which is for Falcon. So that's kind of, there you go. Just for creativity. Sure. That's the reason I'll use. Sure. Number 18, Minnesota. The Vikings messing around with the idea of being respectable. I don't know what to say about the Vikings right now. They're 6-6, so they've passed Chicago and Detroit, but they barely beat Jacksonville. So, this coming week, they're going into Tampa Bay. They're playing against Brady. If they can come out of there with a win, I wouldn't be necessarily surprised. If they go from barely beating Jacksonville to easily beating Tampa, that'd be a very Vikings thing to happen, right? So they're 18th. They're 500, and they're still in the mix for a wild card. Obviously, the division, they're 3 games behind. That's not going to happen. Number 17, the Raiders. They won this week, but they won because you blitz on that play. They should have lost this game. Now, again, I know for power rankings reasons that shouldn't affect it, but to me, when you should have lost to the Jets and you didn't, I can't give them a pass. Yet they're 7-5, so they're still in the mix. They're still in the mix in the AFC. They could very well get a wild card spot, but not an impressive victory over the Jets on any level. Just not. Now, for Vegas this week, they're at home against Indianapolis. That's going to be an interesting game. Number 16, San Francisco. So for San Francisco, they're 5-7. They lost at home against Buffalo 34-24. This coming week, San Francisco's at home against the Washington Kevin Malones. So again, if you're Washington and you're trying to say, hey, we're for real, going into beating San Francisco, that'd be huge. That'd be a huge step forward for Washington and a major step back for San Francisco. They can't lose a game. 9-7 is borderline as to whether or not you're going to get in anyways. If they lose another game, that's it for their season. Number 15, a team that you think is going to be done and then they're not. The Chargers. What M defense? What M offense? Well, Chargers don't have either answer. So the Patriots, 45-0 winners. Now New England takes that. It only counts for 1 win. And now they're going in against the Rams. And I don't know. Right now New England sits at 6-6. They're 3rd in their division, which is unusual. That is highly unusual. But at 6-6, they're not completely out of the playoff picture. Not yet. And don't rule them out. Now, they're going to be against a football team this week rather than the Chargers, so we'll see how it goes. But, New England from one week to the next, no idea what to get from them. Number 14 is the Cardinals. So for Arizona, this week they ended up dropping to 6-6 with the Arizona loss against the Rams, and that hurts. If they'd won that game, they would have been tied with the Rams. As it is, they fall 2 games back of both the Rams and the Seahawks. So for Arizona, as they go in against the Giants, they can't take the Giants lightly. The Giants just beat their rivals in Seattle. They have to go in and beat the New York Giants. We'll see how it goes for them. Arizona, it's been a very up and down year for the Cards. Really has. Speaking of which, another bird that's had an up and down year, Baltimore. Now, they did trash Dallas, but it's Dallas. So this week for Baltimore, their opposition is Cleveland. Uh-oh. I anticipate a very lively day on Twitter on Sunday when Baltimore is playing Cleveland. Or is that's the Tuesday game, isn't it? Or Monday game, isn't it? It's Baltimore Cleveland. It's gonna be very lively. I love being on Twitter when you have these divisional rivals against each other. For some reason, they get really... The AFC North is very hotly contested. As a Cincinnati fan, we're out. We don't care. We'll just watch everybody else fight with each other. But, for Baltimore, that's a must-win. They have to beat Cleveland. And that's not an easy task. So, we'll see how things go for the Ravens this week and whether or not they can start working their way back up this board, because it's been kind of ugly lately. And that win over Dallas, great. That's a team you should beat. Now we'll see how they do against a team that is ahead of them. Number 12, Miami. Yeah, Miami is in this weird spot, aren't they? Where they're good this year. They're now 8-4. They're still 1 game behind Buffalo. And for Miami, the win over Cincinnati this week of 19-7. Just realized I got the wrong letter there. That's why I was going to say it wrong. So for Miami, for Miami, the 19-7 win over Cincinnati. It's a game they had to win because it's Cincinnati. You can't lose against Cincinnati. And now this week they're at home against Kansas City. Rubber meets the road this week. They should be a playoff team this year by the record of 8-4. Even losing against Kansas City doesn't necessarily hurt their playoff chances much, but they need to have a good showing against Kansas City. Show that they're not going to be an easy out when we get to playoff time. For Miami, excellent season. No matter what happens from here, it's been an excellent season. Number 11, Seattle. So they dropped. They're 8-4. I don't want to overreact to them losing against the Giants, but that was not an impressive game by any stretch. Now they're at home against the Jets. They can only lose ground next week. The only way that they move up on this board is if somebody ahead of them just has an absolutely atrocious week. For Seattle, yeah, losing to the Giants. If they lose to the Jets too, if they lost against the Jets, we're talking about moving them down into like 15th range because you just can't lose against the Jets. Number 10, and I was torn on this. So Indianapolis, they get the win this week over Houston, 26-20. I didn't want to react to that either, though. I didn't think, well, okay, they beat Houston, who are 26th on this board, and now this upcoming week they're in Vegas against the Raiders. But for them now, they're 8-4. They are tied at the top of their division with Tennessee. So Tennessee is 9th. Tennessee and Indianapolis, and again, they're both 8-4. Tennessee almost came back against Cleveland. And what's funny is we were doing a Zoom call on my Patreon on Sunday. And I was watching that game because I thought, it's possible Tennessee comes back and wins this. It was 38-7 at the half. And there was a lot of victory laps being taken by Browns fans. And I thought, they're still the Browns. So the Browns are 9-3, but Tennessee is capable of comeback. And they almost did. They almost did. They only lost it by 6. Considering they were down by 31 at the half, I felt that put Tennessee ahead of Indianapolis. You want to switch the two, you can draw that on your computer. Don't draw it on your computer. Don't do it. Number 8, Rams. The Rams win their game this week over Arizona. They move to 8-4, tied with Seattle for the top spot in the division. And now this week they're at home against New England in what could be a very good game between those two teams. It's a flawed division. The NFC West is a flawed division. I don't know that there's a team that I look at in this division right now and say, there's your Super Bowl winner on any level. But it's unpredictable. And the unpredictability, well, if you're a Seahawks fan this week, you don't appreciate it. As a fan that doesn't really have any dog in any fight right now, I got the Bengals and the Chargers. There's no fight to be had here. I really enjoy seeing the unpredictability. Number 7, Tampa, who were, I believe, off this week. Now for Tampa, they're home against Minnesota. They should win that game. Tampa Bay now is in a spot where they really can't catch New Orleans. They're not going to catch New Orleans. But if they go to 8-5 this week, the odds of them making the playoffs, pretty good. Pretty good chance they end up making the playoffs. And in a wild card game, I would not vote against Tom Brady. So once we get to playoff time, Brady's going to be a really tough one to get out in any situation. Remember, it wasn't that long ago I was being told, hey, Chargers are against the Patriots, but Brady's not the same this year. And I said, it's Brady. And then, yeah, it was Brady. So, of course, the Chargers were done. So I never, ever doubt Brady when it comes to an important game. Number 6, Cleveland. So they win 41-35 over Tennessee. They have a 31-point lead, and despite their best efforts, they hold on. For Cleveland, this coming week, of course, against Baltimore, that's a big one, and it's a home game. And for Cleveland, they're 9-3. They're now 2 games back of Pittsburgh. They're not going to catch Pittsburgh, but if they can beat Baltimore, they're not going to have to worry about Baltimore either. And then they get to 10 wins, which for Cleveland and their long-suffering fan base would be huge. So the overall picture for Cleveland right now is a pretty rosy one. And they look solid at quarterback. They seem to have everything going well for them. They did hold on and win that game against Tennessee. Wasn't pretty, but they won it. And now we'll see what happens next. Number 5, Buffalo. So Buffalo this week, they emerged with the victory over San Francisco, 34-24. Buffalo this coming week, they are at home against Pittsburgh in what could be the game of the week. So for Pittsburgh, you're trying to prove, okay, so we lost, it wasn't a great game, we're for real. Buffalo will expose whether they're for real or they're not. They will expose the truth. Buffalo is first in their division at 9-3. Take them lightly, and they're going to win. And so for Buffalo, things look pretty good right now too. If you are a Buffalo fan, this has to be the most optimistic you've been about a Bills team in a long time. It has to be. I'm thinking back to Jim Kelly days. I really am. And even back then, it was kind of a, you had optimism that they do well, but you didn't want to see them in the Super Bowl because you knew they were going to get destroyed. And so there was kind of that balance there of, yeah, it's nice to see Buffalo do well. Oh, now they're in the Super Bowl. Oh, this is going to end so ugly. So hopefully this Buffalo team can change that narrative and change history. We'll see if that's a chance that they're going to follow through with or not. Number 4, with a 30-16 win over Philadelphia, Green Bay. Not really tested this week. Not really. Green Bay now is in Detroit. That's a divisional matchup, so never underestimate a division rival in that NFC Norris. They did lose against Minnesota not that long ago, so we'll see how things go between them and a division rival this week. But for Green Bay, they're 9-3. They're pretty much home and clear as the division winner. And a win this week and a loss by Minnesota, nobody can catch them, and the division's theirs. And then they can kind of relax a little bit and look forward to the playoffs. The one question mark then would be, are they going to be able to surpass New Orleans and get that number 1 seed in the NFC? Because there's only one team that gets a bye in round 1 this year, because they've expanded it to 7 teams from 6 in each conference. So that bye week is really important. Number 3, dropping from 1, it's the Steelers. You can't, if you're the Steelers, you can't lose against the Washington Kevin Malones here and maintain the number 1 spot. You just can't. And now, like I said, for them, now they're going into Buffalo. And if Buffalo beats the Steelers, I just take this Buffalo here and I move it up past the Steelers. And then if Green Bay wins, Green Bay would go to 3, Buffalo goes to 4, Steelers drop to 5. They could drop from 1 to 5. And ask Baltimore how quickly things can turn ugly in a power ranking situation. So for the Steelers, they need to come out with a better game. If they do not come out with a better game, Buffalo could steamroll them. This is a Pittsburgh team that was winning, but they weren't all that pretty in some cases. And now with that first loss, it's their first loss, but they have to make sure they don't get that second loss as well. And Buffalo is not an easy team to defeat. So number 2, New Orleans. New Orleans moves up to 2. That's the highest they've been all year. The win over Atlanta, which was close, but they win it. Now they're going in and they're playing against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are, watch out below. So New Orleans should win that game. And New Orleans is continuing to prove that when Drew Brees gets hurt, they just win. It's what they do. They just win when Drew Brees is out. And of course, they're 10-2, and they're doing their best to get to that bye that is going to be very important with these playoffs, which could be in a bubble environment. They haven't decided yet. We're only 4 weeks out from playoffs, and they haven't decided yet. So, all right, kudos. It's going to be interesting to see what the NFL does. So yeah, number 2 for them, and really, really solid run, which means at number 1, it's Kansas City. And here's the thing. I was on the fence with this, and I thought, if New Orleans hadn't beaten Atlanta, if New Orleans had defeated, say, Green Bay, I would probably have New Orleans at number 1. Because for Kansas City, their win over Denver wasn't by as much as it probably should have been. And the game was really close in spots. So Kansas City's 11-1, same record as Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has the tiebreaker on Kansas City. But for Kansas City now, they're going in against Miami. Like I said, New Orleans is in against Philly. I don't anticipate New Orleans necessarily passing KC. Not with those opponents anyways. But it's going to be a very interesting finish to the season. Because I don't know that any of the top 4 teams look like world beaters, look like they're unstoppable. I don't know that we have an unstoppable team now. Kansas City is going to be the favorite because they've probably got the best quarterback. And likely how that ends up, that the teams with the best quarterbacks are going to get votes. That's why so many bets were being taken on Tampa Bay as soon as they got Tom Brady, because he's seen as the best quarterback in history, which is a whole debate we can have another time. I'm not going to have that today. We're just going to have this debate. So there you go. 1 through 32. And even at the start, I threw in the Lakers just because why not? And we'll see who the Jets fire next week. Is it going to be the coach? When do you fire the coach? Defensive coordinator, fine. Offensive coordinator, sure. When is it the coach? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And this, Joy in the Galaxy Christmas sweater, I got this from EB Games. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. For all your support, I will talk to you again soon.